What's up, everybody? This is Wesley Hamilton, and I'm excited for another episode of Out of the Shadows. I'm your host, and I'm here with our guest today, which is Lauren Lolo Spencer, who is a disability lifestyle influencer, award nominated actress, model, content creator, and a true change maker. She's a great friend of mine, and I think that today's conversation is just gonna be pretty dope. So let's welcome Lolo. What's up? What's up?
Hey
Yes. Lolo, so this conversation today, we're really gonna just dive into some of the things that me and you talk about a lot, and
y'all.
that's
Yeah,
the intersection between Black and disability.
yeah.
And so, of course, before we dive into our conversation and become a little deep about it, um, I have a little icebreaker, and it's
Okay.
kind of similar to everybody's. But if you could have a superpower for a day,
Uh-huh.
what would it be and why?
I get asked that question a lot. Um, and for some reason, I don't know why this is always the answer. It's super dumb, but like I want to have super strength. I
Okay.
want to have super strength. For some reason, I just want to just know what it's like to knock somebody out and just like turn up in a brawl or something and just be like, rah! Like I just want to know what that's like and then go like twerk at the club afterwards. That would be the blend of it. Super
Well, I
strength
mean,
and twerking abilities.
but if you super strength and then you try to do the twerking, you
Yeah,
might you might end up breaking whatever object you holding. You know what I mean? Like you be on a
that is
sink.
big facts. Controlled super strength. That would be the superpower. Controlled super strength. So it's not
See,
out of hand, but it's still there if I need it.
see, I like that already. See how we just kind of added some strength in with twerking. See, that's why this conversation needs to be important, right?
See what I'm saying?
So Lolo, a lot of people probably don't know your personal journey, and I'm a firm believer of allowing that to flow organically within.
Yeah.
But I would like for you to share a bit of yourself so people can understand um, the I guess people can understand your identity when it comes to being Black and disabled.
Yeah, well, I mean, my journey started with disability. I'll say my journey started when I was 14. That's when I was diagnosed with ALS. Since then, my diagnosis has been up for question. So I kind of just like to give my disability an overall umbrella of like muscular dystrophy or something along the lines of that because I'm a huge, huge believer in the power of words. So when I say I was diagnosed, that's very intentional for me because I don't ever want to say I have because then that takes ownership and it's just like, well, if this ain't what it really is, I'm not gonna claim something on me that may not be true. So so that's where my journey started with disability, and I really, really didn't learn the intricacies or the complexities of what it means to be part of the disabled community until I started really doing my own work as an influencer and YouTuber in 2015 with my YouTube channel Sitting Pretty. And so I had recognized like when it was time to do my YouTube channel and I was doing research on like, well, what other disabled influencers exist? I was like, yo, everybody's like mad, sad, and boring, and they've got this like tone in their voice that's like, yeah, so my life with a disability today, it's really hard. And I was just like, yo, son, like, nobody is going to like want to fuck with us if this is how we see ourselves. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna flip that all on its head. I'm gonna show me turning up and going to the club. I'm gonna show me drunk. I'm gonna also show the realities of it too, me crying about my fears around my disability, but also like if I was to share a vulnerable moment like that, I'm also going to share what I do like about my disability. So I had a video about what I was afraid of, and then about what I thought were the benefits of having a disability. So the more I did work as an advocate, that's when I started noticing more about the effect being at the intersection of being a Black woman with a disability,
Mhm.
and how that was different when it started coming down to the moolah. When it started coming down to the business opportunities that came as a result of the work I was doing, that's when I started seeing little things of like, now, wait a minute. Why is this particular person getting all of these deals when, I'm over here trying to get the same opportunity? Now, listen, I'm a firm believer in whatever's for me is for me,
Mhm.
but I did start to notice like, ain't no Black people a part of this
Yeah.
campaign with a disability, or this group of people are the leading, representation of disability, but where are the Black folks over there? Where are the
Yeah.
other people of color? And then that's when I started recognizing like, okay, the intersection of both and the experiences in each really, really make a
Yeah, they
difference.
coincide, right? Like
Yeah.
because you think about like you think, okay, now I'm a part of the disabled community. All these things are happening within the disabled community. All these opportunities, representations happening. Boom, bam. I'm part of the community. I'm gonna be in it, right?
Yeah,
And
facts.
then you like, whoa, like
Yeah.
they haven't even accepted people of color yet within this industry, within this organization or whatever. So even though I'm disabled, I'm now hindered because I'm Black too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's like it kind of it becomes this double-edged sword in a sense. Like, man, I'm advocating on one side for
Mhm.
everybody, but then
Mhm.
on the other side, I'm not being advocated for who I am outside of this disability.
Exactly. But on the flip side, though, being Black and disabled, we got to talk to our Black counterparts as well, because the relationship to disability within the Black community is also really faltered, because whenever you see the sketches, we're always the butt of the joke. It's
Yeah.
always the comedy sketch of a comedian and their friend in a wheelchair, and they're pushing the wheelchair, but they hit a bump and then the person in the wheelchair falls out, and then that's the joke, and it's just like, but that ain't really funny. Like,
So,
you
so
know
no, I mean, but you actually, I mean, that's great that we can kind of weave into that because of course we're going to talk about some of the amazing success that you have had and a
Facts.
representation that you've been able to put on for yourself. That inspires a lot of people that are in your position.
Right.
And then, of course, you wrote a book, so we got to talk about
Yes.
that as
Oh my
well.
God, so many things.
But I think when we are talking about the intersections of Blackness and disability, it is important to speak on. Okay, yes, we started a conversation of the lack of representation and opportunities for individuals that intersect with both, but there's a deeper problem when it comes to the Black community and the Black community acknowledging disability as a whole,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like, and so maybe
Yes.
let's talk about that a little bit because when we're seeing a lot of our advocates, everyone's kind of attacking this area, attacking this one, and the attacks are normally on another side of the color spectrum, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But from a collective conversations that we've had, we've talked about this and we've talked
Yeah.
about the barrier. So let's what do you think is probably the biggest issue within the Black community when it comes to accepting disability?
I think, oh boy. Hmm. Okay. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to word this. Um, I think because of the history of Black people in America, right? To achieve anything, we wear it with much pride.
Hmm.
Anything we ever create, we are the most proud, prideful people in the world, right? Because granted, everything was stripped away from us and we had to rebuild. And even in the rebuilding, there was destruction along the way, right? So I think because of that pride of who we are, how we show up, how we want to show up comes into play. When you have the overall society, this has nothing to do with blackness, the overall society not accepting the existence of people with disabilities.
Mm.
When a black person shows up with a fault or something that is deemed unperfect or something that there's not an understanding of something to be proud about, like, why should I be proud of the fact that, you know, in your case, I got shot?
Yeah.
There's nothing about that that should be prideful according to society, right?
Mhm.
Um, what is there to be proud of for being a wheelchair user? We can't find the pride in that. So there
Mhm.
is no acceptance of our existence in that space because we have to fight all the time.
Mhm.
That it's like, why would we fight for these people who are already in a fucked up position? Basically, is the attitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think again, because of just history, we are a group of people that believe that we could pray everything away. And there's that whole thing of you, oh, just pray it away. He good. Ain't nothing wrong with him. We don't, we're too prideful to admit that something is actually going on. From
Mhm.
down to black men not going to the doctor, to black women showing up to the doctors and not getting the treatment they deserve, because that's a whole thing within itself. When something is quote unquote wrong, there's this attitude of avoidance
Mhm.
because we have to figure everything else out and find some sort of break or joy or pride in that. Does that all make sense?
No, like seriously, when you put it like that, I mean, no, that's true. Because society, like you said, as a whole, already sees disability as a problem.
Right.
And when you have a group of people in a community, the black community, that is still chasing and trying to find an identity, due to stereotypes, inequality, all of these other things, I've always felt like, the mindset is, I don't have space to accept something else when I'm still trying to be accepted.
Or
And
just normalize. Like, we just want to live a life of normalcy where we can ride in our cars
Mhm.
and not be afraid of getting pulled over. We just want to know what that experience is like. We want to know what it's like to go into a bank, show our proof that we are good business owners and we have income, and get a loan. We want to know what that's like. And we don't. So, kind of exactly what you're saying is, we ain't got time to also figure out this part of it too.
Yeah, yeah, because I'm still struggling.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of generational success within Black communities. So when you have the generations before you still trying to find a way, it
Yeah.
becomes that you're a hindrance more than a blessing. When it, like, so just from my experience, like once I got injured and went back into my life, I did feel like I was a burden on everyone because
Mm-hmm.
nobody was prepared for what I was dealing with,
Yeah.
and even my community lacked access for me to be able to thrive. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, those were areas where I think a lot of people, are going back to their communities, but for the Black individual that has a disability, are facing a lot of other barriers as well as like internalized trauma in a sense because
Yeah.
of just the things that are around them and the lack of acceptance. It's kind of like I've always told people that, I've after, living with my disability for a while, I started to like reflect on my past. And
Mm-hmm.
part of that reflection made me visualize all the people that's been in my life with a disability, but they have accepted it in a sense that they didn't embrace it. They
Mm-hmm.
accepted it and pushed it off. So,
Mm-hmm.
so you could see someone. I mean, I've had multiple individuals that I've known that I've encountered, and they had a physical disability, but like, yeah, they lived a normal life, and you find a way to just kind of push it off. But embracing is different, and
Yeah.
embracing is allowing people to know that you own it, and that this is me, this is me, this is what I represent, on top of what else I represent.
Yeah.
And you didn't see a lot of people embrace it. And so when, say for individuals like you and I, it comes a place where you kind of come into the space and you're wondering, do you embrace it?
Yeah.
And if I do embrace it, well, now will I be accepted? Because
Yeah.
if I'm only a part of this one community that I feel comfortable in, because regardless of what, I'm still black. So I love music.
Facts.
I love the culture, right? And so I
Right.
want to be involved in the culture, but then the culture isn't involved within me,
Yeah.
And so, and then before we even pass that, I do want to share a little bit, like when you talk about the history, and
Mm-hmm.
people have to understand too that around slavery time,
Mm-hmm.
anyone that was different and had a disability that was black wasn't useful.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
when you think about it from that perspective, it's definitely something generationally been
Yep.
instilled into us, because if we weren't useful, there's a I don't know how true it is, but they fed us to the alligators,
Mm.
and they did
Mm-hmm.
things like that where they just kind of pushed you off, because again, you couldn't work labor. And
Yeah.
so that also, we talk about generational trauma. Well, that's a layer of that trauma, you know
Yeah.
well, you're not useful,
Yeah.
you don't have the ability. So as we're growing, segregation was just done 50 years ago. So you have to think about that too. Where are the black disabled individuals around that era that I can visualize that was actually living and thriving? You
Yeah.
know, and we've had conversations with some of our OGs,
Mm-hmm.
and we've learned stories of individuals with CP having to, you know, kind of scooted and tooted in a sense to get on the buses, or
Yep.
when you had to walk miles, right, to
Mm-hmm.
school. So all of these things have been barriers for disability as a whole when it comes
Yeah.
to school system, history, all of that. But when you have that extra layer of identity, which
Yeah.
makes you different to everyone else, now it's a hindrance. So just kind of
Yeah.
wanted people to understand that it does go deeper than just 2020 and what's
Right.
now. It goes deeper to, well, when did you ever see black representation of a disabled body in the hospitals,
Yeah.
and in the medical books,
Mm-hmm.
anywhere that you felt like, okay, right? Like you didn't.
Yeah.
What you see us now, and I say us because it's Lolo, me, and a few other handful of people that they
Yeah.
grab and taking our pictures, right? But before that, you had a lot of people searching for the person that they were supposed to become, and that's the representation, because it failed us so long.
Yeah. No, and that's big facts. I mean, even in certain interviews, people have always asked me, like, well, when you were newly diagnosed as a teenager, like, who did you have to look up to feel good about yourself, or who did you have to look up to? And I was just like, nobody. Nobody with a disability, at least. Like, I would see like the Raven Simones and Kyla Pratt's and stuff like that, and be like, oh, that's Kiki Palmer. Like, that's cool what they're doing. I feel like my personality is like theirs. I love them, but I know they didn't move around in the same way that I did. And again, I think even at a young age, I didn't even fully grasp the concept of what it meant to have a disability at 14. All this shit didn't really come to me until I was an adult. But I think that's also the other thing about it is, like you said, even with us not being useful, you know, back then, that's when internalized ableism kicks in twice as much, because we
Mhm.
talk about internalized ableism within the disability community, but I feel there's a certain level of internalized ableism when you are a Black person, because there's this idea that constantly gets brought up. We have to work twice as hard, twice as much, be twice as talented to get just the equal amount of, you
Yeah.
know, whatever our white counterparts get, right? So there's this constant proving of our worth
Mm.
constantly as Black people, especially as Black women. And then you add in disability. So when you're constantly working from that space of fight, work, you know, shout out to Rihanna, it's kind of like, damn, when do we get our opportunity to chill
Mhm.
and know that everything's going to be all right?
Yeah. Um, Probably never. Unfortunately, we setting the tone for the generations after us. You know, we're gonna
That
have to.
literally, that's what we're doing this for. Like, this has nothing to do with us. This
It
is for all the
has,
generations afterwards. And by that time, Lord knows if there's going to just be robots. But I don't know.
I
You
know,
know,
right?
I'm not going to go in that direction. That's a different tangent. But
You
yes.
know, shout out to AI taking over our lives, but
Yes.
they have no color, right? Like they have no
They have no color.
okay, so no, I really like, you know, us emphasizing the history lesson here, because I do
Mhm.
want people to know, even looking at the title and knowing that we're about to have a conversation on Blackness and disability, that we're not trying to be able to say this is a black and white thing. When it comes
Yeah.
to Blackness and disability, it's a human issue right now.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. You know, like for me, just to emphasize, you know, I was on a recent episode of Queer Eye for the second time, and I got to meet a young man that is in a wheelchair from a car accident, and he
Hmm.
emphasized in this meeting me and him had, that because he's in a wheelchair, most people think that he was shot just because he's a
Mm.
black man in a wheelchair. So again, like I said, human issue. There is so many cultures that literally prey on our downfall in a sense, and visualize it. When you see someone that is different, you see
Yeah.
someone in a wheelchair and you already think they were shot, not because they told you they were shot, but because of the lifestyle that you perceive they live, right?
Yes.
Like instead, but you could see your family member and be like, oh no, he was in a car accident. No, well, I was
Right.
in a car accident too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and it's that perception that I find. And when I go out and travel, you get to see how other cultures see you and your disability by the way
Hmm.
you're treated from them, right? Like, and I
Yeah.
always tell people that I learn more about how I'm seen as a black disabled man just by the way society treats me,
Yeah.
right? If
That's
I'm
big
driving
facts.
my car and I go pull up into an accessible parking spot, you see what I said, accessible parking spot,
That part.
I'm most likely to get cussed out, or for
Mm.
someone to be belligerent or not even allow me to park because I don't look disabled enough,
Yes.
right?
Ooh, we're gonna
And,
go there.
and so when you think about it, how are you able to accept other cultures and other people with disability, but a black person needs to look a certain type in
Has
order
to
for you to
prove.
consider them to be disabled, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's also a barrier that I feel like a lot of people get. So it's either you already perceive what has happened to the individual, or they don't look up to par. So
Yeah.
like you said, you're going into a space and they probably denying you, or because off of their own self-perceived opinions and you know of you, not because, oh, you gave them paperwork in their mind. You're not disabled, but why aren't you? Because you haven't visually seen it enough.
Right.
See, so
Exactly.
it goes back to the lack of representation. So me and you, as well as the rest of the community, are going through these multiple layers of barrier.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's go to the next thing. So with all of these layers that we have, all of this fight, Lolo,
Mm-hmm.
you've been fighting, okay? And and
Listen,
you
child.
know, at the end of the day, like, you know, I want you to share your experience when it comes to the influence that you've placed with, you know, within the entertainment industry. Like
Yeah.
you've been nominated for awards, you know, when it comes to acting. You've on your own Sex Lives with College Girls, or Sex
Mm-hmm.
Lives of College Girls, that's on HBO right now. And if you guys have
Yes.
not watched it, Lolo is a pure, authentic being on this show. It is so raw, it's so good, and she gets to come in rolling and disability to me. And you could
Mm-hmm.
share this in a minute, but for me, when I watch it, it's it's not emphasized. It's just a
Yeah.
part of you, and that's the other part. And you get to be able to, like, what was it? I'm not gonna share it all, but I
Okay.
rode in and it was like a nude party or something. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
the naked party. Yep.
It was something. It was so fun, and I didn't see no good. So okay, so just so you know, it was definitely a TV show, but it really made me feel good that even you were a part of that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And your
Yeah.
character was like, "Come on, let's go!" Like it was you that kind of set the tone. So you know, share that as we talk about all these barriers. You know, your success on HBO, your success in certain films, and even the work that you're doing now, and even been on a Disney show, right?
Yeah.
A Disney movie. So I just want you to share a little bit of, you know, how does that feel, but also
Mhm.
what do you plan to do with the platform to make sure that your work doesn't get forgotten?
Absolutely. So, this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like I'm a firm believer of whatever is for you is for you, right? And I will say that I know what works for me is because I am my authentic self. Like the way me and Wes are talking right now is how me and Wes would talk in wherever we're at. Okay. I was gonna say more, but I was like, nah, I don't want people to know where we at. But but it's who I am. It's how I've always shown up. And because of my extroverted spirit, I feel like, people like my people like my personality. And so I use it to my advantage to represent being black and disabled. And so even when I started acting, so I was doing YouTube first. And as a result of the popularity that I was, gaining on YouTube, I got the opportunity to audition for an indie film, Give Me Liberty, which, by the way, everyone needs to go watch it because it's a phenomenal film. So I got the opportunity to audition for Give Me Liberty. I got the role, but it was about 2 years before we actually ended up filming it. Like, that's traditional for indie films. But when I was debating on whether or not I wanted to take on the role, I had some real conversations with some friends and everything else. And I I recognized that to be in a film where I was a lead character was way more important than my own fears or reservations around whether or not I can actually do the job as an actress. Because mind you, before Give Me Liberty, I had never acted before. Like I did little funny sketches on ADD and stuff like that. But like real acting, lines, intentions, I had never in my life done that. But I had told myself, I said, it's more important for people to see a young black woman in a powerful role, standing up for herself, advocating for herself, and doing it in a way that is justified based on the context of the story. I'm not going to tell the story, but based on the context of the story, it's more important to see that than it is for me to punk out and be like, am I a good actor? So everything that I've done up until this point has always been about the importance of the representation. And I make it very clear with any project that I work on, this is how I show up. This
Mm,
is how I'm going to be. There's this part of the story that I don't feel is authentic to the disabled community, or there's this part of the story I don't feel a Black woman would respond like this. So it's being able to have those conversations with your producers, with your directors, to and your writers, to say, hey, this ain't it. And because I know I have the kind of personality that isn't afraid to say that, it's even more important for me to take advantage of the opportunities that I can. So that way I can make sure that I'm not only speaking up for myself, but I'm speaking up for the viewers who are going to end up watching this. I'm speaking up for the actors to come up behind me next, and the ones that are right alongside of me doing it at the same time that I'm doing it. So I want to make sure that I'm hitting all of those points. So with the opportunity of something like Sex Lies, the thing that drew me to the character was the fact that they wrote it in a
Mhm.
way that had really nothing to do with her disability, but they never shied away from the fact that she shows up in a wheelchair.
Mhm.
And so I had conversations with our showrunner, Justin, and talking to my agent and the people on set about accommodations and accessibility and all the different things, because I know I'm not showing up just to be an actress. And one day, talent with disabilities will be able to show up and just act and go home. But until then, there's got to be the people like myself and many others right now who are going into these spaces saying, fix that, work on that. That's great. Keep going in that direction. Oh, y'all should have asked me first, but that's all right. We're going to work this out. Here goes the solution for that. And so with that, I intentionally pick the roles that are authentic to the disabled experience. And with the platform, kind of what I'm saying is that advocating behind the scenes, advocating every time I get the opportunity to speak, because now because of the popularity, everybody want to talk to me. So I'm like, well, if we're gonna talk to each other, we're gonna talk about this.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
gonna make sure we address these things. Um, and then with that ultimately leads to Live Solo, the lifestyle brand.
Nice.
Um, and so yeah, that's just where it's at. It's just overall about advocating for a better experience, a better life, a better lifestyle for people with disabilities, and for Black people with disabilities to see themselves and know that there there's more that we can do than what anybody tells us on a regular basis.
Absolutely. And I really like that because you are definitely making strides in the things that you're doing. And you are an authentic person, and I think that shows up everything that you do. It can be something that most people feed into, because when
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking about disability, sometimes people don't know if they can be authentic, right? And even with
Mm-hmm.
the platform, right, like I always tell people, I'm authentic because, like you said, I know who I am. I'm a person that can pull up listening to Nipsey and then give you a motivational speech 3 hours later. Like,
Goddamn right.
I know who I am and I own that. And what I
Mm-hmm.
what I practice is what I preach.
Yeah.
But I can never shy away from being that visual representation to that young man or woman coming from the community that I came from. And
Facts.
so, there's not enough people doing it where that you can shelter your identity, or you should,
Yeah.
right? Like, you shouldn't shelter your identity, because if if so, then you get put into a bubble that really doesn't include the intersections of who you are, right?
Right.
Like, and that's the part that we're talking about. It's like, most people have to see disability from more than one lens.
Yes.
And when you see it from more than one lens, you actually now are serving more. Um,
Yes. And that's why I love like voicing the character of Jazzy on Firebuds, the Disney Plus animation, because we don't talk about enough children representation. Black children with disabilities being represented. So when I got the opportunity to voice Jazzy, again, she's a spunky girl. She's got beautiful curly hair and all these different things. And again, it's not about her disability, it's about her imagination, about how fun of a personality she is, how much she just loves her brother and that relationship. That was important to show up for as well, because to me, the children are our future.
Yep.
Teach them well and let them lead the way. It's that that's we have to also as adults make sure we're taking care of our babies too, with disabilities, because we don't talk about that enough either.
And
So
I
yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I had to throw
no,
that in
because
there as well.
I think I was literally this morning thinking about that.
Mhm.
Thinking about how many children live with disabilities that are coming from the Black community, yet you still don't have a powerful visual representation of that.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so then it goes back to, why isn't the Black community accepting certain things like disability? Well, if you're a parent that has a child with a disability, you probably don't even know the resources that are out there because they haven't shared them with you. So you kind of get into a mode where you're empowering your child based off of what you know. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's even sheltering. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and again, it's because now you're just trying to make sure that they're safe, protected, and all these other things. And so I think that, no, I like your direction, and I like the fact of emphasizing that children do need to see that representation, because all disabilities aren't physical,
Yeah.
right? And within the Black community, we face a lot of individuals that are dealing with autism, something that's
Mm-hmm.
cognitive.
Mm-hmm.
It's multitude, especially like even as a lot of people are, sharing the mental health issues. So,
Yeah.
you add PTSD, depression, anxiety, all of
I
these
was
layers,
just about to bring that up.
being Black, not knowing if you can get to therapy, not even understanding therapy, and then having a disability where people still don't really want to serve you because you have so many layers of trauma.
Yes.
Right. So I can't
Yes.
just be served for my disability, because I'm gonna tell you, I might be feeling some type of way about this Black man that just got shot on TV yesterday. And are you gonna be able to talk to me about that too? Because it's triggering my disability.
Exactly. Exactly. And I've had conversations with my own therapist. Sometimes I feel like, damn, did I just dump too much on her? Because I'm like, I was kind of having this. And that's the thing when we talk about self-worth. Self-worth is the biggest thing that I struggle with. People probably think, like, oh, Lolo's so confident. Yes, I am confident in many ways, but self-worth is a thing that I have to work on every single, like, literally wake up, I am worthy. And sometimes I forget to say it, and then my whole day is just shit. But I was talking to my therapist about my struggles with self-worth, and I'm like, how do I find the worth within myself when society says, as a disabled person, we don't see you, we don't accept you? As a society, as a disabled person, we don't want you in here because this place isn't accessible, or you got to go around through the back, or you got to go through an alley up. It's just fucking dumb. Um, and then when you're a Black woman, when literally statistically on dating apps, there have been reports of Black women being the least messaged back on dating apps, the least to be swiped right on, the least to get like if they send a message to get a response back. Like literally, when you feel like you're at the bottom of the totem pole, and then like a little deeper than that, it's like,
Yeah.
where do you, and then when you actually are in the world and you are dating or trying to build friendships or whatever the case is, you then start revealing to people like, okay, it's a little bit more involved than you think it is, or I need help with this, or I need help with that. And then those relationships start to get sour. Or even being in relationships, dating, and literally somebody telling you, if you were not disabled, there would be no questioning this.
Mm.
Jesus Christ. And I'm like, well, damn, I'm just trying to get dick on a regular basis. What is the problem? So it's like all of this, right? And and like, this is what I deal with as an adult who is successful. Then let's add on that part. I'm successful. People recognize me every once in a while. Like, then you add on, well, I ain't got the money and I ain't good enough and I don't know. Like, it's like, Lord have mercy, Jesus.
Yeah.
Michael B.
Yeah.
Jordan, please just show up, save me. Save me, please, sir. Because this is
So
getting out of fucking hand. And it's just like you said, it's the layer on top of layer on top of. I'm like, if I'm dealing with this as an adult, how do we start with the kids? So by
mhm,
the time they do become an adult, they don't have to struggle with their self-worth. They don't have to struggle with PTSD because of the environment that they're in. What do we do? And who do we talk to about these things? Because my therapist could only help me so much.
yeah. Oh, that's so good. That's so good, because we see so much being advocated about mental health and things, but I've shared posts recently where I've talked about, having a disability and um my platform, but also just being a gunshot survivor. No one ever came to me with mental health resources. Ever.
Mm,
Like I didn't
mm,
even like, I'm only owning it more now because I've watched TV. I'm not even gonna
yeah.
lie to you. I started watching TV, and it's this show that I would watch, and they would be breaking down all these different symptoms from like PTSD and
Mm,
and I'm like, that's what that is. Like, and it's been
mm,
years. I've been successful. I've been talking to people, but I had never really acknowledged my own trauma and things that I was being triggered by because of the lack of assistance or acknowledgement to the Black community, right?
yeah.
And if you have a disability, you don't have a lot of people that are serving the mental health space for people with disabilities, no matter what race you are. And
Facts.
and so that also becomes a layer, So I
Mm-hmm.
really appreciate you sharing that because, we get back into the conversation of kids. If kids don't understand their worth and their value, if they don't see relationships and things being successful with a disability, if they don't, you get a few on YouTube, but it shouldn't just be a YouTube channel. It
Yeah.
should it should be a lifestyle. You should see
Yeah.
it more on lifestyle instead of, these are 5 individuals with relationships with disability. Go follow them. No,
Yeah.
because it's portraying a different narrative when everyone has their own identity in life. And
Yeah.
so instead, I just want to be out in public and see. I just want to see it, right? And
Yeah.
whatever that visual looks like, I just want to see it. Rather, it's just people out, people at bars, right? Like you spoke real highly about the lack of access. And, access is the thing that keeps people away from normalizing disability.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
if you're not putting someone with a disability in a space that now they can normalize it, then what
Yeah.
you're doing is saying, hey, this is for y'all. So
Yeah.
now all my able-bodied friends know when I'm showing up because
Yeah.
that's the space for me. Instead of
Right.
me going to a bar on a late night, and saying, oh, I just want to go have a drink, and then I can go pull up and roll up to the lower, bar table and hang. Right. Like
Yeah.
how why can't it be that normal instead of me rolling up to the bar and that's where all the servers use their stuff, right? And now
Yeah.
I'm all around all this extra, right? Like I'm around
Mm-hmm.
all the traffic, so I can't even really enjoy myself. Or I go to a restaurant that's new, but all they have is tall tables.
Yep.
So now my food is sitting on my lap, and all my able-bodied friends think it's okay to put a hot plate on your lap, right? Like I, like and I always have to tell people, like, man, like I'm not okay,
Yeah.
right? So again, like I said, like when you want to normalize, you have
Yeah.
to create access because
Yes.
normalizing something can happen organically. It can
Yeah.
happen very authentically by Lolo rolling in somewhere having a good time. That introduces someone to saying, hey, you're just a normal person. I'm about to go over there. But if I only see you at the grocery store or I only see you at the hospital or
Right.
I'm thinking there's something wrong with you, and maybe that's too much for me to be a part of the conversation, right?
Yes. Yes. Exactly. There hasn't been enough social uh I guess social representation for people with disabilities to show up to certain places, go to certain things. Like I know there's like some parties that I go to and they'll post me and I'm like, okay, cool. Like y'all trying to let people know we good over here. It's a safe space here at these parties, so we love that. Um, but I think in general, it's like even something as simple as like a Starbucks. It's like, yeah, you get in it, but can you really stay? Not
Yeah.
when there's that much traffic, not when there's
Mhm.
that many people at the tables, and whatever the case is. So I just feel like with people like ourselves in the space that we are, it can feel really overwhelming because it's like, fuck, we have to talk about everything every step of the way. But I will say it's a beautiful place to be because we get to be the leaders and thought makers to push and share the narrative. The challenge is making sure we get the fucking credit for it. Because
That part.
historically, Black people have invented everything that everybody likes, has invented everything that everybody uses, and we don't get the credit for it. And
Yeah.
in the disability space, there have been plenty of times where us as Black people have shared our experiences, said what we said, used certain facts and statements that
And we
have now been accredited towards people who ain't us.
Yeah, we've definitely created champion DEI influencers. In our space, our lived experiences have definitely amplified people without the lived experiences to be the voices for us because, again, it goes back to the barrier of Black and disability. And some
Yeah.
even platforms, I'm on a lot of platforms, so I want to speak highly about LinkedIn in a sense that there's a lot of this LinkedIn disability voice tags.
Okay.
None of these people are Black. um,
Really?
not to the level
Sorry.
of all of the other disability advocates that are on LinkedIn that are getting pushed out and promoted by LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's not the lens that we're talking about right now. And
Mm.
so again, like for me, when I look at it, I'm like, okay, you know, what efforts do we need to? It's that fight again,
It's that
right?
fight.
How much more do I need to prove to you that I can advocate on all these different areas and spectrums? Well, it gets back into you don't want me to talk about my experience because you're not ready for the Black experience. And you're definitely not ready for the Black disabled experience because then it makes people question, are their DEI efforts actually working?
Yeah. Yeah. Or it makes people in the room uncomfortable and they're like, oh, well, that's not the part of DE and I we were talking about. It's like, well, then, bitch, what part? Because this is what it is. Like, the fuck you thought? Like,
And so all right, but that is what it is. And the transparency of this conversation is for people to understand we're still fighting for the same advantages that some people that haven't even put up a fight are getting. And and on top of that, living the lifestyles that we live adds extra pressure to the daily disability that we live with.
yeah,
Right. And so
absolutely.
sometimes people don't even pay attention to your disability anymore because they're only trying to push you. So, like you said, like you go somewhere and you're stressed or your body's aching or whatever, no one's empathetic to be aware of that. So
Yeah.
they think you have that super strength that you spoke about at the beginning, and
Yeah.
you're supposed to have it for your 18 plus hours while you sitting up. I always,
Literally.
I always have to tell people like, man, did you sit down for 12 hours or have I seen you get up 5, 6 times to stretch? Normally when I see an able-bodied person come to me like, oh, I got to stretch. I'm like, man, you could have kept that to yourself.
Right. Right. And I think that's the thing is like it's always like this picking and choosing of what can we say, when do we say this, when should we share that, who do we share that with? And it is really exhausting, honestly. It is, but it is again a very the way I look at it is like, man, it's never easy to be the first.
There you
It's
go. There you
never
go.
easy to be the first. And I've just have started to embrace that fully. and really, take that on fully. And I feel like too, when it comes to DE&I, stop talking to the Black people. Talk to the white folks. We know what it's like to be Black. We know what we know this information. Stop talking to us.
And y'all
Stop
do too.
like I think that's the other part about DE&I that sometimes a lot of these brands and businesses miss, is like they want it to be this full inclusive conversation. No. If the conversation is about disability, this conversation needs to be a town hall or a panel discussion with disabled folks, and there should be no other disabled people in the room. There should be nothing but non-disabled people in there to understand it. If we're talking about Blackness, have everybody in there take these courses. You want to take a quiz. The same way we got to take a quiz on what to do when there's a fire. When you're working in corporate, because I worked in corporate. When we got to take those quizzes, God damn it, don't end the quiz about being Black and whatever, and give it to the people that ain't Black. Because I'm a pass with flying colors. I don't know what the fuck is going on. Stop telling me what the problem is. Yeah. I don't care because I'm already living it. So unless I'm going to get raised for being Black, don't talk to me.
I mean, and it's just like reliving your disability story, right? Like reliving your trauma of however it happened. If it was something traumatic, it's like when you have to constantly hear these Black stories that you're living every day, it's in a way, it's like a system that's created to keep you constantly traumatized or defeated, right? And so, but you said something that was really good where not only did you share, it's hard being the first, but you spoke about, creating the proper narrative that can lead and help and influence other people like you and I. So let's talk about the book, the book title, Access Your Drive and Enjoy the Ride. Look, see, right? And it is on all platforms. You can find it on Amazon, right?
Yes. So go on Amazon, buy it now, and then when you read it, go back and leave a review, because we need those reviews. And take a picture of it, send it to me, let me know that you got it. Okay.
I love that. So you provide a lot of insights and lessons in there, and so just kind of share, like, what was the drive to create this, and then what is your intention for what people should gain out of it?
So as far as the book, it's kind of like everything else that's happened in my career. It was an opportunity that I had gotten from my publisher. They reached out and basically was like, hey, Lolo, we're fans of you. And we're a publisher. So if you ever have an idea to write a book, we would love to be your publishing partner. And so after doing some brainstorming, I had realized that the thing that people have always asked me over time during YouTube, sex life, whatever, is how do you do it? How do you live this life? How have you become successful? And all these different things. And for me, it's never been just like it's because I wake up at 5 a.m. every day and I look at the stock market by 5:30. Like, there is no routine to my success, right? There's contributing factors that are what I do on a regular basis. There's habits that I do have, but as far as the initial opportunities to the success, there was no like one way around it. But when I thought about my story, I was like, everything that did happen for me boiled down to making a decision. And so I wanted to write a book about the importance of decision making, because if you know how to make a decision and be fearless in making a decision, you then are on track to reaching your goals and your purpose and whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. So this book is full of my personal experiences, sharing the stories where I made a decision that changed the trajectory of my life.
Oh.
So that's what this is a book about. This is what the book is about. at the end of every chapter, I give tangible tips on what the reader can investigate within themselves in order to help them make a better decision. Tips on what to pay attention to, hacks, stuff like that. So it's not just a book where you just read it to learn about my story. You actually are able to take something from it and apply it to your life as well. So that's what the book is about, and that's the intention behind it, is for people to read it, apply it to their lives, so they too can live the lives that they ultimately desire and dream about as well.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So you guys make sure show that again. Access your drive. Enjoy the ride by Lolo Spencer. So make sure you get that. And if you grab it from Amazon, take a picture of it, buy it right now. After you read it, go back and leave a review.
That's
Right?
right. That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
No, so this has definitely been a great conversation. I feel like uh, I love to have these moments where we can have a very authentic conversation without expectation.
Yeah.
And so the way that this was flowing has been very great. Like I said, I've had it running on some of my platforms. So shout out to everybody that's commented or anything. But as we close this up, there's I have two questions for you. But the first one would be, what advice do you have for individuals that do represent the intersection of Black and disability, or Black and disabled, however we want to put it,
Yeah.
um, who aspire to make a difference in society and break barriers? So I think that that's literally the most important part. So I'll just rephrase the question again. What
Mm-hmm.
advice do you have for individuals that represent Blackness and disability who aspire to make a difference in society and break barriers like you have?
Um, I would first say, be sure it's what you want to do. Have that talk within yourself. Really make sure it's what you have to do, because because this is the trouble with social media, is I always tell people, I don't want nobody to feel obligated that their purpose is something that has to be this worldwide life game changing experience. Sometimes people's purposes are affecting just the people within their community or just the people in their family. I always use Venus and Serena's daddy. His purpose was to make Venus and Serena. That's it. Venus and Serena, they did what they had to do, you know? So I would say, first, make sure that it's something you know is on your heart to really do. Not because you think it's fun, not because you think you're going to get a lot of benefits from it, not because you think you're going to get paid or whatever the case is. Do it because it's something that's really, really on your heart to do.
Mm.
Secondly, if that answer is a yes, put on your boots and get to work. That's like, I mean, if you are not waking up and going to bed every day trying to figure out what can I do to make the circumstances of Black and disabled people's lives better, you're not working hard enough. And I hate to say it like that, because we just talked about how exhausting that is and how traumatizing that is, but that is the truth. And the only reason it has to be like this right now is because there's still only a small group of us who are doing it. So the more that joins us, absolutely, the more the merrier, to make it easier for everybody. But it's not easy to be the first to do it. So when you know that and you embrace that and you own that, get ready to do the work. But what I will say is, when you do the work, the opportunities are there.
Yep.
And there are the moments of joy and excitement and cool things that you get to do, like travel and meet people and talk to folks and all of the things. So there are, of course, benefits to it. But just know that if you're going to do it, that it requires work, and be yourself,
Yes. Oh.
because you will get found out for not being you. And that is going to be an extra layer on top of your life that you're going to have to fight for, Because if you don't show up for yourself and you show up as this representation of what you think it takes to be successful or get brand deals or whatever the case is, then you're going to suffer more than you have to. And it's already hard enough. So just show up as yourself, show up as your niche, do the work, and, you know, access your drive and enjoy the ride. You
Yeah.
know? So that would be my advice, straight up.
Be the change you wish to see in the world, but be ready for the change that you want to see in the world, because it's going to come with a lot. And no great thing comes without a test, and life tests you in many ways. And so be ready for that, because you're going to weather a storm when you're trying to create some type of beautiful day.
Absolutely. And
Right?
be patient. Be patient. Be patient. Be patient. It's
Um,
working.
So, Lolo, my last thing for you is, because my show is called Out of the Shadows, and the whole
Yes.
purpose behind Out of the Shadows is bringing people on this platform that has made amazing strides in their life, yet there is a piece of them that they don't ever want people to forget, but your success hides it in the shadows.
Mm.
So, what part of your identity that you always own, that you would always want people to know, even if it's still not visibly shown today through your success?
Ooh, that's a great question. You should have told me this beforehand so I could prepare an answer. Let me see. What is something that people don't know that I don't ever want them to forget?
But maybe it started at the maybe it was more amplified at the beginning of your career,
Hmm.
but as your career became more successful, there's certain things that won't reach certain communities because it becomes hidden. You get where I'm coming from now?
Ooh, shit. That won't reach other communities because it's hidden.
So, you
Damn.
want me to give you an example?
Please, break. Give me somebody's example.
I give you mine.
Okay.
I look at my life and my success, but a lot of people don't see my life before my disability anymore. Even though for 24 years of my life, I lived this
Oh.
mindset, this street mentality. I lived a part of the community that I'm always empowering, but now everyone just sees Wesley for the 11 years I've been disabled. So I'm always having to say, well, you know what? I come from this place. This is where like
Mm.
I'm tatted up for a reason. Like I always have to share this to make sure that I'm always going to be a representation to the people that aren't me yet, right?
Yeah,
So
I
that's
see
what,
that.
so what's been in the shadows for you, or what you're constantly
Oh, you know
projecting?
what? You know what? Here's a
There
good
we
one. Here's a
go.
great one, actually. I don't want people to forget that I am a Black feminine queen. I know I work a lot and I know I can talk aggressively. And I know that with my disability and the work that I do, I am constantly in my masculine because I have to work, fight for what it is that I'm trying to do. But don't ever forget that I'm a Black feminine queen first. So treat me as such. I want my doors opened. I want my bills paid for. I want it. And I'm saying it
Yes.
aggressively with my neck and everything else. But I mean that shit. Don't fucking forget it. Don't forget that I cry a lot. Don't forget that I hurt. Don't forget that I want to be loved. Don't forget that I want to be cherished, that I want to be cuddled and held and wined and dined and seen as this beautiful sexual being as well. Don't ever forget that. Like, I know it gets lost in the sauce sometimes, but that would be my thing. Don't ever forget that shit.
And that's one of the most powerful responses that I've gotten. So thank you, Lolo, for that. And
Yes.
thank you for being a part of the show.
Of course.
And everyone that is watching, we truly appreciate you. Until next time.
Bye, y'all.